Hi, this is Dr. Saguil with a tutorial on. Hi, this is Dr. Saguil with a tutorial on the flu vaccine. This has always been a controversy in lay. This is Dr. Saguil coming to you with a tutorial on the flu vaccine. Those of you who know me will know that my voice isn't always like this. The reason I'm speaking like this and have a stuffy nose and some body aches and I'm wearing my vest for warmth is that I just received my flu vaccine. One of the other things that I do is work in an urgent care center, and that's for a big hospital, and the big hospital wants to have everybody get flu vaccinations unless you can prove that you have a severe egg allergy, Guillian Barret syndrome, or have a severe allergy to the influenza vaccination prior. And I could argue the fact that I had a severe allergy to chicken or eggs, but because of certain reasons I just decided to get this shot. And I haven't had a shot for about close to 10 years. And I'm usually not sick, but now I'm sick. So certainly that's just an anecdote or a testimonial for side effects from vaccinations, but it probably could have been worse. I do take my usual suggestions for the DrRic Herbal Go Bag, and I'll put a link down at the bottom of the screen. You can read on it. It's a blog, and I also have a slide share presentation on a couple things to do during cold and flu season, but I have myself on some botanicals that usually will improve outcome or shorten the suffering from any kind of infection. Hopefully that's helping me, and hopefully I get over this because I'm supposed to be climbing the Grand Canyon in about 10 days. Anyway, the tutorial is to give you awareness as my patients on what to do in making the proper decisions for the flu vaccine. I don't carry this in my office, as you know, but it's offered at many Walgreens and Take Care clinics. There's two basic ways to provide the vaccination. It's either through a shot in the arm or buttocks, that's a killed virus, or it's a nasal spray. That's something called a live but attenuated virus. Both of them will not cause influenza. The idea is you take a particle of the dead virus or an attenuated live virus that looks like the influenza virus, and it's once it gets into the body, whether it's through the nose or through the arm or the shot, it instills or causes a reaction of the body to create antibodies to this viral particle. And the antibodies that are formed will usually be formed in that stress response, that inflammatory reaction. Again, it's to the small viral particle, but it's an inflammatory reaction that produces antibodies specifically to kill the flu virus. The flu virus, it's usually a trivalent virus, so every year it kind of changes a little bit. And you can get all this information on the CDC website, and I'll put that down here. But depending on what the medical community is forecasting as being the biggest outbreak of the influenza for the upcoming year, the manufacturers will change the trivalence of the virus or the vaccine. It'll either be Influenza B, Influenza A, H1N1, or Influenza A, H3N2. Those aren't important. Just know that every year is supposed to be changing the composition of the shot. And that's why you have to keep on getting this thing every single year. Or at least that's a suggestion. And it does help. There are randomized controlled trials. Technically it's called randomized placebo-controlled trials that have followed people with COPD getting the shot. And it decreased the onset, or at least the sickness, in 76% of these folks who have COPD. That's a lung disease. So it does help, and it has shown in studies to help. And that brings us to our next point, is who gets the vaccination. And for sure, pregnant women, for sure, anybody with disease such as diabetes, asthma, lung disease, chronic lung disease, would be aided by having the vaccination, because if those folks in particular have exposure to the influenza virus, they don't usually do as well as a standard person, average American, less than 65 years of age with no disease process. So since they will fare worse, it's better that they have the antibodies in them to help fight. Again, you can look on the CDC's website about who gets the vaccine. It would be those three groups, in addition to people who are caring for anybody with diseases like asthma, diabetes, or chronic lung disease. Since the healthcare workers that care for these folks, if they get sick, they can give it to the patients, and that wouldn't be good either. So that would be like me. I'm a healthcare provider, and I see people with influenza all the time. In fact, the first time H1N1 broke out, I was working in an emergency room for that year, and I saw people left and right. I didn't get sick. So as far as sickness, that is a fallacy, and that'll bring me to my next point. Some of my patients will say that they get the shot, the flu vaccine, but they still have the flu. You don't get your influenza. H1N1 is terrible. The signs and symptoms of it are just devastating for some people, and it's not your average flu. Sickness during the fall and winter months, unfortunately in lay press, has been termed the flu, and that can be anywhere from a sinus infection to aches and pains to any virus that can cause aches and pains, sinus infection, sinus congestion, sore throat, cough, bronchitis, fever. So the specifics on influenza, and again I mentioned the three: Influenza B, Influenza A, H1N1, or Influenza A, H3N2. Those three are killers. It has been proven time and time again that they have killed people. In fact, the last pandemic, which was several years ago, about 2008, 2009, killed a score of people. You can read this online, but because of that fact, the companies were in a hurry to mass produce the vaccination. I cannot find any information on whether the vaccines carry adjuvants, like you'll find in some of the children vaccinations. Mercury is an adjuvant. It's supposed to, in addition to the vaccine itself, the dead virus, it's supposed to, things like aluminum salts are supposed to start an irritating reaction so that, again, your inflammatory response is turned on. Mercury used to do that, but unfortunately Mercury supposedly had a whole bunch of other side effects, so we took mercury thimerosal out of childhood vaccinations, and I do believe the only thing as far as an adjuvant that's allowed to be kept in the United States in vaccinations is the aluminum salts. So at this point I can't find any literature that says the influenza vaccine has that, whether it's the nasal spray vaccine or the injectable vaccine. So that's good, but still it's supposed to produce a reaction. It's supposed to produce antibodies. When you have an antibody response or produce antibodies, if you don't have true exposure to the influenza virus, then the antibodies will calm down. There'll still be infinite memory of the antibodies, but they'll calm down and they'll go back into sequestration. They'll go back into the lymph nodes, into the bone marrow, into the spleen, into the liver, until the response to influenza is true, and then they'll be brought out again. But to bring them out, you have to have that sick response: the aches and pains, the fevers and chills, the headaches, the body aches, the hoarse voice that I have. So it can happen. It's supposed to happen. Hopefully, if you're healthy enough, and or you take the herbal go bag that I suggest, you can compress the time frame down. Your average influenza vaccination is supposed to be able to produce antibodies to fight within 2 weeks. So you technically have 2 weeks to have this response. If you're healthy and perhaps take some botanicals, and botanicals, certain ones have shown, you can read my blog, but certain ones have shown a true improvement in sick response. If you compress the time frame from 2 weeks down to perhaps 10 days, better for you, and you'll feel better and not be knocked out of commission and continue on with activities of daily living and not lose any time off of work. So I don't think it would hurt. I think it would help. There haven't been any bad side effects. There's no problems with using botanicals with the influenza vaccine. It still does not affect the production of antibodies, and if anything, it would help. For those of you who don't get the vaccination, I understand. There are many of my patients who have had terrible responses, worse than a hoarse voice, fevers, chills, body aches. They've been wiped out. So for them, that sounds like it would be a severe reaction. Again, the 3 contraindications to influenza vaccinations would be severe egg allergy, severe allergy to previous influenza, or Guillian Barret. And you can look up Guillian Barret syndrome. If you have any of those 3 things, then you can sometimes have a waiver filled out at your employer's human resources, but that does not guarantee that you'll be able to still work. Hopefully the workplace will accommodate, but in case you don't get the vaccination, there luckily is something called herd immunity, where if the majority of the population gets the vaccination, usually if you just hang out with other people, you'll also have the antibodies for it. But every year there's more of a predominance of one of the 3 different viruses. And as far as which one that will be the dominant one, and I think they're actually coming out with 4 to put into the vaccination. As far as which one will be the dominant one for the season coming up, who knows? It depends on the statistics. So it's kind of a shoot. If you had a shot in the past, it's probably not going to work for the new outbreak of influenza for the upcoming season. So you always have to be careful, wearing masks, washing hands, avoiding sick population, and again, staying healthy, having a low body weight, maintaining on proper diet, and then exercise. I think it's always helpful. Most of my patients who exercise maintain a proper body weight, eat properly, sleep well, usually do well during cold and flu season without a hitch. So it has to speak to the power of living healthy. So hopefully this helps in making decisions about influenza vaccines. For specifics, please see the CDC website. Otherwise, stay healthy.